Hello, this is T Chapman 500, and in this video I'll be telling you about the biggest mistake I made during the development of Solar Lander's physics update. As a little bit of a disclaimer before we get into it, I don't remember all of the details about what happened, but I will try and fill in any missing details based on what I do remember. So some things might not be 100% accurate, but I will present this as accurately as possible. Our story begins several years ago when I'm wanting to extend the capabilities of my game so that players can make modifications to the game, like adding their own spacecraft, or game types, and other things. Well, I hadn't written the code in such a way that could easily accommodate that, so I needed to greatly overhaul the game's code. And I didn't even do that correctly. So I went around looking for tutorials on how to use the Unity engine so that I could hopefully implement what I learned to make the game moddable. Well, I didn't properly implement what I learned, but I did find some useful tutorials. So one of the tutorials I found was titled Modular Monobehaviours, and I'll put a link in the description, and I started to work on implementing that. I eventually lost track of what the goal was with these types of monobehaviors, and so I didn't implement it correctly, but I did at least try. And back then I wasn't really too concerned about performance like I am now. So this leads us into the biggest mistake that I made while developing Solar Lander. Without creating a copy of the game so that I could, say, patch a bug in the current version while still being able to overhaul the game's code to allow for modifications, I just started overhauling the game's code. So when somebody found a bug in what was the current version of Solar Lander, well, I was unable to fix it because the game code was not in a state that would allow me to release an update. Sometime later, I had to reinstall the operating system, so I created a backup copy of Solar Lander, formatted the hard drive, reinstalled the operating system, reinstalled what I needed to reinstall, and then copied the backup to the new workspace. So now I have essentially two identical copies of the same thing, and I start working on overhauling the game code. Or should I say, I resume my overhauling of the game code. Now remember that I had actually started overhauling the game code before I made the backup, so I don't have any way to make any patches to the existing game. Now some time goes by and I look for tutorials on how to improve the performance of Unity games, and I find them. Now I don't exactly remember how this happened, but I ended up with 3 copies of Solar Lander, and I started trying to implement what I had learned about improving Unity's performance, such as having only one update function and one fixed update function in the entire game. That was not implemented correctly by any means, and I now had 3 copies, and it's now very hard for me to figure out which copy is the current copy, because now I've taken a bit of a break and don't remember where all the copies are. In fact, I don't even remember how I ended up with 3 copies. The solution to this problem? Create yet another copy. Actually, this time I created a new project from scratch, and I decided it would be easier to import all of the assets and start making decisions about how to import all of the scripts into the new project. And then eventually, once I got this new project up to the point where it could be published, I would just delete all of the other copies because they are now irrelevant. So that is exactly what I did. I copied all of the assets from the latest copy of Solar Lander that I could find into the new Solar Lander project, and then I worked on figuring out how to copy over all of the scripts to work with the new system that I was trying to implement. But this time, I set up a few scenes specifically designed to test all of the game mechanics. For example, the new terrain generation system, the new gravity implementation, which would actually start reducing the gravity as you went inside the planet. Still not sure why I decided that would be a good idea, but at least now if you find some way to phase through the planet and get towards the center, you're not going to be just shot off into infinity like you would before. Not that that would particularly happen. I don't even know if that's possible, but it's something that, well, could happen if you manage to somehow phase through the planet. Using this scene, I also was able to test the new docking and undocking mechanics, the new staging mechanics, and a few other things. I also created a new settings screen with a lot more features and enhancements over the old settings screen, one that would allow you to assign joystick axes in-game rather than in a dialog box that appeared before the game. I had created a new way to keep track of the game state so that I could easily extend the game state to allow for custom game modes and stuff. And once I was satisfied with all of the features working as intended, making very sure that I didn't accidentally leave out stuff from the previous version, I published what became known as the physics update. Though before I published it, I was originally gonna call it the physics overhaul. And remember at the beginning of the video where I said I wanted the players to be able to create mods for the game? Well, really, I put in the framework only for the game states, like the progression, free roam, so I could extend that a little bit, but I neglected the rest, so we really didn't have much of a modding framework in place in the physics update. In fact, it was sometime while I was developing the physics update that I would not be able to put in the entirety of the framework to allow for modifications. But at the very least, I got a significant performance increase in the physics update, which is one of the primary goals of the update, and I did get a lot more stability in the simulation of superstructures, which was very important, and I added a few other things that I found I could throw in there, like displaying the current orbit instead of just displaying a trail of where you had been. And I have since gone in and deleted all of the previous copies of Solar Lander, which are no longer relevant to the current development line. So now that I have decided that the next update will be the modding update, I have created a copy of the project before I've modified any of the game code. So if I need to, I can release another patch for the physics update, while at the same time overhauling the game code for the modding update to allow modding to actually happen. Now, one of the other mistakes I made during the development of the physics update was making it so that when the level ended, everything in the level would get immediately deleted. So if you successfully completed the objective to advance to the next level, everything got deleted. If you crashed, which would cause you to end the game, well, everything got deleted before the crash sound could even play. Now, of course, the crash sound would play if, for example, you had staged the lander and it was the descent stage that crashed into, say, the terrain, not you or the command module. Then the crash sound would actually play and you would be able to hear it. But that's basically the only way you can hear the crash sound, assuming that the crash sound stops playing the instant that the game object that's playing it gets deleted. So one of the things that's going to happen in the modding update is I'm going to have a condition for ending the level and then another function for cleaning up the level once it comes time to clean up the level. So when the level ends, everything's gonna stay just where it is so that all of the sounds can finish playing, and then later we can clean up all of the stuff that's in the level. Also, the way that level ends are handled in the current version is too far integrated into Solar Lander to be able to easily change it in the physics update. So that's why that's gonna have to wait until the modding update. And currently, that is the only bug that I have to let go in the physics update. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. This is T Chapman 500 signing off.